Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Benedict Cumberbatch just went full spoiler bros on Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, even a little bit on the X-Men era of Marvel that's happening after that, too. I am sure Kevin Feige and Marvel were totally happy to see him do that. Also, probably not a conspiracy theory, Marvel probably told him to spoil everything because they tend to control interviews like that on purpose. You have probably seen Marvel deploying tactical spoilers to deflect negative attention from other places recently. Probably all the Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively stuff that they don't want people thinking about, and probably all the negative stuff with Captain America Brave New World. Look over here at all the Avengers Doomsday spoilers, not over here at this other stuff. But the good news for us, he did spoil a bunch of stuff. He confirmed a bunch of details on both Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and how Marvel has changed the storyline for all the characters since they fired Jonathan Majors as Kang, changed Avengers 5 from Kang Dynasty to Doomsday, brought back Robert Downey Jr., and he talked a lot about what's happening with Doctor Strange 3 now, and how they also had to change that because of the way they changed Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. So we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're also doing that giveaway for Captain America Brave New World tickets. All you have to do to enter, just be a subscriber and let me know what you want them to do with Doctor Strange 3 now that everything has changed with the next couple of Avengers movies. Personally, I was hoping for a Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange team-up from the comics like Triumphant Torment, but it sounds like Robert Downey Jr. isn't going to be around after Secret Wars, so they got to do something completely different. But if you didn't see, this week, Benedict Cumberbatch released a brand new interview about all the movies and other projects that he's done in the past and that he's doing right now. Not just his Marvel movies, like he talked a lot about Sherlock. You might remember Classic Charlie back in the day. I did a whole bunch of Sherlock videos. It was fantastic. But all of his Marvel stuff was a big part of the interview, so that's the part that all the trades were hyping up, where all the Spoiler Bros stuff came from. During it, he explained what's going on with Doctor Strange 3, Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, with way more detail than Marvel usually lets its actors speak about without considering them a spoiler bro. But like I said, sometimes Marvel has them do this on purpose and uses it as non-traditional marketing. Tom Holland is a really good example of that. Like, they'll have Tom Holland spoil stuff because the act of spoiling something somehow makes it so much more interesting to people. You probably remember the more famous examples of this during Marvel Phase 3 when Tom Holland was still pretty new to the MCU. Generally, Marvel gets way more juice from stuff like that than they do from traditional boring interviews. But what I'll do is I'll just go down the list of the biggest things that Benedict Cumberbatch revealed and what it means for the story. First big thing, he said that he is not in Avengers Doomsday. Doctor Strange is not in Doomsday. What he probably means by that is that he's not in the main part of the movie. He might just be in a post-credit scene that sets up Avengers Secret Wars. What he said was, his absence from Doomsday has to do with the character, Doctor Strange, not aligning with this part of the story now that it's changed from Kang Dynasty, like he was meant to be a bigger part of Kang Dynasty. There's a lot to unpack here. In the original plan for Avengers 5, when it was called Kang Dynasty, Shang-Chi also would have been one of the film's main leads, which I think is a surprise. I didn't expect him to be one of the main characters, I just expected him to be in the movie. That version was meant to focus on Kang the Conqueror and the Council of Kangs. Since then, Marvel completely retooled the film to introduce Victor Von Doom, Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Doctor Doom. I think this actually confirms a long-running theory people had about Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings of Power. Way back when the Shang-Chi movie happened, there were all kinds of theories about where the 10 Rings of Power came from, where was that post-credit scene pointing to, what was the whole meaning behind the beacon, who was the beacon signaling to. This is long before Jonathan Majors had his legal problems and Marvel fired him, but during Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, Kang's larger time ship he constructed around his original smaller one had similar rings with similar writing on them as the 10 Rings of Power. Which is where all the theories started. People were like, oh, it was probably Kang. Kang created the 10 Rings of Power. That makes sense. All because we knew that Avengers 5 was heading up to the Council of Kangs. Before they changed everything, my theory is that the 10 rings were just part of his original time ship, and when he was banished by the Council of Kangs to the quantum realm, they just broke off and landed outside of time on Earth somewhere, and that would be how Wenwu found advanced technology from the future in the distant past. Then all that changed, Jonathan Majors was fired, Marvel brought back Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom from another universe. Throughout the entire script for Avengers Kang Dynasty, got rid of the director who was the director of the Shang-Chi movie, which makes sense that the 10 Rings would be connected to Kang if the director of Shang-Chi in the 10 Rings was also the director of Avengers Kang Dynasty. Daniel Destin Cretton is that director. They're bringing him back to do Spider-Man 4 though, so they like the director, it's just that they completely changed the storyline. But they brought the Russos back to direct Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and the Russos are currently in the middle of finishing the script for Avengers Doomsday right now, with them about to start shooting the movie really soon. There's a couple of fishy things going on in there. If you believe what Marvel is saying, supposedly they were thinking about pivoting away from Kang as a character before Jonathan Majors' legal problems, but either way, we are where we are heading into Avengers Doomsday now. Benedict Cumberbatch says that Doctor Strange was one of the main characters when it was still Avengers Kang Dynasty, when they were fighting the Council of Kangs. Now what they've done is that Avengers Doomsday revolves way more around the Fantastic Four characters in Doctor Doom, which it sounds like all come from that same Fantastic Four universe that we're going to see in that movie. And they're using that movie as more of a direct lead-up to Doomsday, which makes sense because it's the last movie that Marvel's releasing right before Avengers Doomsday. So of course there'll be like a post-credit scene like Thor Ragnarok, where it directly sets up the beginning of Doomsday. And because Kevin Feige made the concept of anchor beings such a big deal during Deadpool and Wolverine, it was his idea specifically, and he wouldn't say exactly who the anchor being of the MCU was in Avengers Doomsday. But he did say that the person was still alive, so Iron Man wasn't the anchor being. I think the idea is that Doctor Doom was going to come and try and kill the MCU anchor being, and when Doctor Strange was still in the movie, you had the idea of maybe a Doctor Strange versus Doctor Doom face-off using their magic and Doctor Doom's technology. But now, because Benedict Cumberbatch is saying that he's not in the movie, I actually think that Spider-Man is the MCU anchor being, and Doctor Doom will kill him at the end of that movie, or at the end of Spider-Man 4, and that'll be the big twist. And maybe that's them trying to parallel his death at the end of Infinity War in the way that Iron Man felt about that, where this time, Doctor Doom, same looking person, like he looks the same, is now killing him in cold blood. Personally, I think the plot of both versions of Avengers 5, the Kang Dynasty version and the Doomsday version, sounded like they were both going to be adaptations of the Avengers Time Runs Out storyline with the incursions. Like in both cases, the incursions were a critical part of the story. I think the main difference in the Kang Dynasty version of it is that the Council of Kangs would have been more responsible and would have taken the place of the Beyonders, would have in Time Runs Out. But in both versions, you wind up with the same result, where the multiverse finishes collapsing into Battleworld, and that's where Secret Wars picks up. It's just that in the Doomsday version, they're adapting more of the Doctor Doom storyline from that and giving it to Robert Downey Jr., where he's trying to save the multiverse, but also ultimately winds up becoming the main villain of that story too, as God Emperor Doom.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
Sounds like a cold world, Tony.
I've seen colder.
It sounds like now the Council of Kangs will be a footnote in Avengers Doomsday. Like, we're just going to wrap this plot up. We're just going to explain that we got rid of them. Doctor Doom just completely wiped them in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then we'll never talk about them again. Just pull a Thanos with the Asgardians at the beginning of Infinity War. But either way, Secret Wars was always going to be a multiverse movie made up of a bunch of legacy actors, like a multiverse Avengers team, giving them their own version of Endgame, trying to help restore the multiverse, and then everybody going back to their original universes at the end of that movie, and Marvel soft rebooting the MCU. And because Benedict Cumberbatch is just listing off all of these different details, like there's so much to unpack here, one of the side notes is that Shang-Chi sounds like he got a big downgrade in the Avengers Doomsday version of the movie. Real big bummer for him, they postponed your sequel, Shang-Chi 2, because they'd rather have your director make Kang Dynasty, then make Spider-Man 4 all before doing Shang-Chi 2. Then they push you to the back of the team because you're not as critical to the plot anymore. But at least he's still in the movie, like Shang-Chi is still going to be in Doomsday. Benedict Cumberbatch then goes on to say, and this is in his own words, he says, "I shouldn't be saying this, but," and then proceeds to go on with a bunch more spoilers, "Doctor Strange is in a lot of Avengers Secret Wars. He's quite central to the plot of where things might go." I think that bit confirms a lot of the early theories about the actual plot for Secret Wars and how Doctor Strange was going to be involved in that. When it was still Avengers Kang Dynasty in Secret Wars, Doctor Strange was supposed to be one of the people who survived the destruction of the multiverse and made it to Battleworld. Most of the MCU characters were supposed to die, like another Infinity War snap downer ending, because the entire multiverse was meant to collapse. Secret Wars would have featured a very different cast of characters from Doomsday, mostly made up of a few surviving MCU people and many, many legacy actors from the pre-MCU Marvel era movies. I think a better comparison to make now, after having seen it in theaters, is a bigger version of Deadpool and Wolverine. where you basically see X-Men coming back, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, probably Venom, classic Fantastic Four actors, everybody that you thought you might see in Deadpool and Wolverine but did not see. Like, where's all these other big characters that you didn't put in this? So Deadpool and Wolverine is a little bit more like Spider-Man No Way Home, X-Men No Way Home, and Secret Wars winds up being Avengers Endgame, but it's more like X-Men Endgame or Fantastic Four Endgame for the classic Marvel actors, Fox Endgame, basically. All because one of the big things that Kevin Feige has been talking about has basically been giving these legacy actors their own version of Avengers Endgame that they didn't get during their era of Marvel before the MCU came along and before Disney bought Fox, and he's going to be recasting all these X-Men actors. Literally, the next era of Marvel is going to basically be X-Men, other Fox-based characters, just new actors playing the characters. I just did a video talking about some of the stuff that Kevin Feige was saying recently. One of the next things that Benedict Cumberbatch says also really important for this too. He says Doctor Strange is central to where things might go. He's talking about where Marvel is headed after Secret Wars when Marvel uses it to do a soft reboot on the MCU. And going forward, he's making it sound like Doctor Strange is central to the X-Men era of the MCU. That can mean a lot of things, like Doctor Strange does get involved in X-Men based stories. We even saw a version of him during X-Men 97. But the way he's hyping himself up in the interview makes it sound like he's thinking of himself like the new Marvel Jesus, like make all the Deadpool and Wolverine jokes. The power of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to change forever. I don't know how much of that's going to wind up bearing out, like we're talking about years in the future here, but I do think that Doctor Strange will continue to be involved in the higher level story stuff across Marvel Phase 7, like once we eventually get to Avengers versus X-Men in the movies. Next big thing that Benedict Cumberbatch talked about was Doctor Strange 3, and there have been a bunch more changes to that movie. Based on what he says, originally it was going to come out right before Avengers Kang Dynasty, and they were going to use the Clea post-credit scene with the incursions to lead up to the Council of Kangs fight, revealing that they were the ones pushing a lot of the incursions to happen faster. That's why you've been seeing all the incursions happening in all the different Marvel movies recently. So I think a lot of the original plot for Doctor Strange 3 would have just dealt with that, and at the end of Doctor Strange 3, they would have learned about the Council of Kangs and set up the beginning of Kang Dynasty. Now it sounds like from what Benedict Cumberbatch is saying, Doctor Strange 3 might not get released till after Secret Wars, meaning the plot would also completely have to change because they'll be past all the incursions multiverse stuff. And because Benedict Cumberbatch said that Doctor Strange is critical to the X-Men era of Marvel, like where Marvel's headed next, quote-unquote, that makes it feel like Doctor Strange 3 will feature more X-Men-based magic characters. There are many, but they don't even have a script for that movie yet, so like literally we don't know what the story is going to be. Everybody let me know what you want that movie to be, if it's going to be more of an X-Men based movie. But here's the thing, originally I would have said Doctor Doom team up would be really cool, but because they have all the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom stuff happening through the next couple of Avengers movies, it'll probably be a little too soon to double down on Doctor Doom after that. I fully expect Marvel to introduce a brand new MCU version of Doctor Doom though at some point. I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to be gone after Secret Wars. One of the other cool things I think they could actually do with Doctor Strange 3 that they weren't going to do before is more of a classic Defenders storyline. Now I'm talking comic book Defenders, when Doctor Strange was leading that team, or they could just use the movie for Midnight Suns team up and make it more of a Midnight Suns movie. Everybody asking where Moon Knight's going to be showing up next, supposedly he's supposed to be in that Midnight Suns team. Ryan Reynolds said that they almost got Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider back in Deadpool and Wolverine. They could do an MCU Ghost Rider on Midnight Suns. I just did a video on the Midnight Suns movie that they've been developing for a while now, so I'll post a link down in the description because it does sound like they'll do that team at some point in the next couple of years. But speaking of team-ups, lots of Netflix Defenders coming back in the MCU right now too, through Daredevil Born Again. Punisher is just the next one. There'll be more eventually. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. We have all the Super Bowl trailers in a couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll get that new Fantastic Four trailer video too. I will do videos for whatever Marvel and everybody else winds up releasing. I've already done a couple of videos for all that Fantastic Four footage. Click here for those, and click here for all my Daredevil Born Again trailer videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.